Hello. Hello, everyone. So here we are. We are getting awfully close to the holidays, aren't we here? And let me get my screens here. So, you know, we want to make sure we're looking at hormone balance through the holidays, because it's really the key to joy, intimacy, renewed confidence. So, you know, if you're struggling with any of those issues, fatigue, trying to lose some weight, and you just can't get where you want to be, chances are hormones are the issues, and it's been overlooked. It just hasn't been evaluated for you. And that's what I want to bring to light. My name's Dr. Susan Plank. I am the director of the Norwin Wellness Center, and I work with clients virtually. So we do testing throughout the country. And for exactly this, what are the hormonal issues that someone is suffering, and how are they affecting their fatigue and also their weight? So thank you so much for being here and joining me for this webinar. I absolutely want you to have the energy you need, the intimacy that you crave, and the body that you desire. And, you know, through the hormones is the ideal way to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. If you happen to have any questions, please don't hesitate. You know, reach out and just throw them there in the chat, and I'll try to make sure that I get them addressed. And otherwise, you know, I'm just trying to get in the Christmas holiday mood here, and so no, I am not someplace with this much snow. But I pulled out a picture from last year because I was listening to some Christmas music, and you know, so I'm not on like some ski slope someplace. But let's go ahead and get started with the webinar, guys. So hormone fatigue. You know, what we're looking at here is hormones act as the command center, the control system of the body, and they regulate energy production, fat burning, and also our mood. So hormonal imbalances are actually very common, and especially in folks suffering from fatigue and that weight gain, that if you lose it, it bounces back, or if you lose a couple pounds, you sort of plateau and you can't get past that. Those are sort of classic patterns that I see when hormone imbalance is really coming into play. So general medicine, allopathic doctors, so endocrinologists, gynecologists, even primary care doctor, they don't tend to really recognize the hormonal component of fatigue and also of weight and body composition. And I think that is a big piece of the puzzle of why If you go to your doc and you're saying, hey, I really want to lose some weight here, give me some advice, help me out, what do I need to do? They'll sort of run, a blood panel on you, but really none of those professionals or specialists really dive into hormones. And I think that's really unfortunate, because like I said, I see a lot of people really suffering. They can't get the relief. They're motivated, but they just can't get the help. They can't figure out what is wrong. Why can't I lose this stubborn weight? Why am I dragging myself around? I'm so tired. So I just believe strongly that if we don't do the testing, then it's just guessing. It's just, well, we're just going to guess what's wrong with you, and that is not my approach. I don't believe in that approach. We need to do testing, so then we have a path forward. And I haven't seen, in all the clients I've worked with, virtually everything is reversible if we catch it and we set out to have a plan to get things balanced, and especially hormone imbalances. So you're going to see sort of hormone and adrenal fatigue back and forth. I prefer hormone fatigue because it's actually what happens that is known as adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue can leave sort of a lot to the imagination. First, you have to figure out what the adrenals are, which we'll talk a little bit about. But generally, one hormone in the body will affect every other hormone in the body. So if we get some that are really getting depleted, sooner or later, it's going to affect the other hormones in your body. So specifically, what we're looking at is imbalanced and depleted hormones are the cause of this hormone fatigue, adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue is known more as a syndrome, meaning it's a collection of symptoms. So usually the onset of this is due to prolonged stress and or a chronic undiagnosed infection. That chronic undiagnosed infection can be bacterial, it can be viral, but oftentimes it's actually a parasitic infection. It can be something like yeast, a systemic infection like candidiasis. So that is frequently, we're testing for that, and that's frequently what we see that is really sort of hijacking the person's body and their metabolism, and not letting them lose the weight, but also sort of have them feeling so tired that they're eating, but these parasites in their system are absorbing the nutrients and leaving very little left for you. So quite often folks suffering from hormone fatigue don't necessarily initially have a lot of symptoms. They just know, I just don't feel right. I just don't feel on top of my game. And again, it's not flipping like a switch where things are off and on. These hormones tend to get depleted over time. So it's a gradual process. And the longer someone's under stress or dealing with an infection, like I said, it just sort of drains these hormones. So again, it's not like, oh, I wake up one day and boy, I'm just really wiped out, and it's just a moment in time. It tends to be more this progressive, long, and just sort of decreasing ability to get yourself picked back up, to feel good, to have the energy you want, and to have the energy you want to have, even to try to take care of yourself, to cook and do the things around the house. So the adrenals are actually very responsive, and they are our communicator, our balancer with not only what goes on inside of us, but the outside world. And so normally, when we're under stress, we're going to see these hormones increase. But then as the stress dissipates, these should return back to normal. So I want you to sort of think of like a seesaw. As one side of the seesaw goes up, the other side goes down, but it's going to sort of ebb and flow like that. That's the normal response we want from hormones. There can be a little bit of a rise or a little bit of a decrease, but the body's going to kick in and make more or bring things back down, stress levels back down. So the problem is when your stress hormone levels remain elevated for an extended amount of time, your body's ability to recover, it tends to be reduced. And the ability of your adrenals to keep making these hormones becomes compromised. So under these chronic stress conditions, the adrenals virtually burn out if the stress isn't brought under control or managed. And at this point, the adrenals become fatigued and no longer can sustain an adequate supply of the hormone needed to keep you in balance, not only, like I said, with your environment, what's going on around you, but also internally. So the other important aspect of this is our adrenal stress, are these initial stress hormones, are the precursors for our sex hormones. So the more imbalance we have of these stress hormones, we're going to see imbalances in progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. And this isn't just a woman's problem. I'm seeing this in men as well, because again, the culprits are the chronic stress, but also chronic undiagnosed infection. Underlying, sort of just percolating in there. And a lot of times folks just don't even know that they have it. So what are the symptoms of hormone fatigue? So in both men and women, the hormonal symptoms include mood swings and irritability, cravings for sweet and salt, can be headaches, but typically there's some level of stress. But that is the one symptom that we all tend to discount. If I walked up to you and said, hey, are you feeling stressed? Chances are it'd be like a reflective, no, I don't feel stressed. Almost like it's a weakness to admit, no, I don't have any stress. Folks, we have stress. It's 2 weeks from Christmas. Yes, you have stress. And so this is where it's very, very important to have this trust factor with a healthcare provider that is really looking for these symptoms and looking for the root cause. Because on the surface, if a doc that you don't necessarily trust is going to ask you about your stress level, you're going to think, well, what are they going to do? They're going to give me an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, some sleeping pill. It's not what I want. That's right. We need to get to the root cause of the problem, right? So we need to identify and evaluate for hormone imbalances to get these symptoms really addressed. So here's some other symptoms that can pop up. Persistent or progressive fatigue, a struggle waking up in the morning. You wake up and you sort of like open your eyes and go, oh, not another day, man. I could sleep for another 3 or 4 hours. And it doesn't matter how much sleep you get. If you go to sleep at 6 o'clock the night before and you slept for 12 hours, you would still want more sleep. Difficulty handling stress, meaning that something in the past, maybe it was like, oh yeah, that's annoying. But now all of a sudden you just feel like, hey, this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I can't take one more thing. I'll ask for, the term, I feel like a raw nerve. Those are the types of things. If you're thinking those thoughts, chances are you're on that pathway or you're in the process already of depleted adrenal hormones. Some folks, yes, depression and anxiety, dark circles under the eyes, a weakened immune system, which is actually very concerning, with what we've been dealing with here, and that it's cold and flu season. Physically, just not feeling strong, not, just not lots of zip or gusto there. Blood pressure can tend to be on the lower side. Cold feet, cold hands, poor circulation, dizziness, just sort of these senses of things just not being right, decreased libido, and weight gain. So those are the, some of the more common symptoms that we're going to see. And we know if we start to chalk up more than one or two of those, definitely we need to look at getting these hormones evaluated for you. So I don't in any way want to say that, hey, all stress is bad, because it just isn't. Stress gets us motivated. Adrenaline gets us up and moving. It's a wonderful thing. People work really well under pressure, and you might be one of those people. It gives you clarity, right? You just get, man, I can zero in and I can just go to town and get this work done and just knock it out. But again, it's it's that prolonged part. If you've ever said, man, I just get this rush, man, I could just do it. And I just get in there and get things done. That's great in the short term. That stress working for you, that is perfect, because it's going to be short term and then it's going to dissipate. You can imagine, though, you can't have this inner turmoil, this adrenal rush for hours or even for days. It would just be exhausting. So that's where I sort of want to differentiate here. There is stress that it's short term. It's okay. It gets us moving. It gets us motivated. It gets us out of bed. It's protective for us. But that chronic long-term stress is really what we're talking about here. And it's really, that type of stress that makes it feel like, hey, my buttons are getting pushed and I'm just about ready to push back. Okay. It's sitting in traffic and you're ready to like blow a gasket because you're sitting in traffic. It's standing in the grocery store line or the line at the, you're out shopping now and you're thinking, I just can't take it. This is just, it's putting me over the top. Those are the thoughts. Those are the patterns that typically at another place in time, it wouldn't really phase you. But the more stress you're under, you're feeling really overwhelmed in those situations. And that's when we're talking about sick and stressed, right? We're talking about it's gone beyond the normal motivational stress, the stress that allows you to focus and be very efficient and, pump out, cleaning the house in an hour and a half on a Saturday, then when you zero in on things. This is really where it's starting to zap you. It's taking your energy away. It's robbing you of your energy. It's robbing you of your joy. And you're going to get tired. You just don't even care what you're eating because you just don't have the energy to care. And so that is really what we're talking about here. So some of the things that can sort of speed this process along is a poor diet, being overworked, which I really worry about now with folks. Folks still working from home, a lot of folks more comfortable, right, being at home and working. But do you have that boundary of between personal life and work life? Because I think it's really gotten blurred for a lot of people. Almost work is 24/7 now. While the phone rings, I have to answer it. I have to check emails. I have to do this. And it's sort of creeping in, right? Where it's taking over instead of, hey, I get in my car and I'm out of here and I don't have to think about it anymore. So we want to make sure that we have a nice life balance there, a sense of loss, right? If you've lost a relationship, you've lost someone close to you, had a death in the family or a close friend. These are all things that can add stress, and it can be awfully hard to deal with, right? Those are not going to be short-term stresses. They impact your life for years to come. And some folks, that's really when this starts, is they were a caregiver, right? They were a nurturer. They were someone taking care of someone else. And then this process started, right? So they're giving of themselves. And I'd say probably that's the number one criteria that I see. It's folks that are really a giving heart, and they're giving of themselves to take care of someone else, or to take care of those around them. And they keep giving though, and I worry about, have they given too much, right? So we have to know where they're at, what sort of situation has transpired to where they find themselves, where they're really feeling not the happiest, just no way do they feel like being intimate, and their body and their weight, it's just sort of, it's running on autopilot, right? They just don't have the energy to take care of themselves. The other thing I want to, like I started saying earlier, is I want to touch on base here is, again, any hormone in the body, if it's out of balance, too high or too low, sooner or later, it's going to affect the other hormones in the body. And so what I frequently see is folks that in their mind, whether it's somebody else in the family or a friend that they know, they suspect they have cold hands and feet, their hair is thin, they're gaining weight, they can't lose it. So they suspect that their thyroid is out of balance. And so there's a couple of points here. Is number one, we need to really have a thorough thyroid evaluation. A lot of docs are still doing just the TSH level, which is a blood test, to evaluate thyroid function. And I'm here to tell you, it's just not enough. But if you're one of those ones that you're like, I have all the symptoms, I'm fatigued, I'm constipated, my cold hands and feet, my hair is thinning, my nails are breaking, I'm just dragging around, you very well could have an undiagnosed thyroid condition. But if overall your thyroid checks out on actual blood tests, then we have to look at those stress hormones, those adrenal stress hormones, because they overlap on a lot of these symptoms. And so we can't discount. And I don't want you thinking like, well, if the doc is telling me, well, it's not my thyroid, so I have nothing else to worry about. That's just not the case. And quite often I'll actually see folks have both conditions at the same time. So they have this imbalance in the stress hormones, and we're starting to see the thyroid start to underfunction as well. So we can have these happening simultaneously, but not picked up by a general practitioner. So the uprise of the thyroid dysfunction, like I said, especially if only the TSH is being monitored for thyroid function, that's really a disservice to you when you're looking to feel better. I routinely am doing the T3 and T4 free and total. I want to check the antibodies, Hashimoto antibodies, because we need to differentiate, do we have inflammation going on? I am not a believer that if you're diagnosed with Hashimoto's that you necessarily need to be on a hormone. Hashimoto's in my mind is more inflammatory, but if the inflammation isn't recognized and addressed, it can lead to destruction of the thyroid, which then, yes, hormone intervention could be utilized and maybe even needed. But I'm not at all an across the board of, yeah, let's just throw hormone medications at an inflammatory condition. That just doesn't make a lot of common sense. But another lab test that I do routinely for thyroid is an iodine level. I want you to realize that our thyroid hormones, the T3 and T4, are made out of iodine. So the T4 has 4 iodine molecules and T3 has 3, right? And that's what happens when T4 converts to T3 is we lose an iodine. When we're talking about hormones of the stress hormones and our reproductive sex hormones, those are actually made out of cholesterol. So we have to be careful if someone's been put on cholesterol medication that drive down cholesterol. It's actually going to drive down the production of these hormones that we're trying to get balanced. So again, we need to have a very thorough overall approach, and it really involves evaluation and some testing rather than just sort of going by symptoms or again, allopathic. The lab ranges, I think, need to be updated. They're not necessarily functional for individuals, and we can't take everybody and just make sure that they fit into these ranges. It just doesn't work that way. So we need a more specialized approach that's for the individual, and we need to recognize what symptoms they're experiencing, but we need to do the lab tests to reveal what's really going on. And like I said, if we're not testing for it, then we're just guessing what the problem is. So there are 4 stages of this hormonal stress fatigue. And so there's alarms. First stage is alarm. Second is resistance response, adrenal exhaustion, and then adrenal fatigue. So the alarm reaction is the initial reaction. It's a lot of those symptoms that I just mentioned earlier. You know something's not quite right. You're just feeling off. You're starting to feel, maybe mentally fatigued. Things are, you just know something's not right. You want to sleep a little bit more. You don't feel completely rested. You're sort of beating yourself up sometimes, saying, boy, if I want to lose this weight or I want to feel better, I need to eat better. I need to take better care of myself, but you just don't have the energy to follow through on that. Hey, I should be going for a walk every day, but the time comes and you're like, I just can't. I'm just going to plop in the chair here and watch some TV, click on Netflix. So it starts this process of a vicious cycle because early on, these symptoms, like I said, are very vague. And so it tends to be more of a general health type of situation that you can't necessarily put your finger on. If you go to the doc, they do a basic lab panel and they say, hey, everything looks good. Let's check you again in 3 months. And you walk out going, oh, I don't think I could take 3 months of feeling like this, which leads us to stage 2 is the resistance response. So in this stage, the fatigue becomes much more noticeable. The body needs more rest than usual. Recovery, if you happen to get, sick, a cold, flu, heaven forbid, COVID, you are really going to struggle. If you're one of those ones that you've had COVID and, people around you have had it and they're sort of bouncing back and you're just sort of dragging along, chances are that you already had some degree of adrenal fatigue, and getting sick was part of that. And now your body sort of got knocked down and is having a really hard time getting back up again. So as these hormone levels drop, remember, it's infections, insomnia, anxiety, irritability is going to become much more pronounced. So sometimes if you catch yourself, with these types of emotions and these types of feelings, like, wow, why did I sort of bit their head off? What's going on there? I didn't mean to, but at that moment in time, it's your response, right? It's your resistance response. Like you just can't take anymore. So this phase can actually last from a couple of months to a couple of years. It tends to be one of the longer phases. So it can last months to years. And this is, as this progresses into the adrenal exhaustion phase, some folks are starting to say, hey, I just don't feel good, and reach out to get some testing done. But typically it is this third stage, the adrenal exhaustion, is the way we live our lives. As much as we all have on our plates, we don't have the luxury of just sort of slowing down and taking care of ourselves because we're always putting more and more on our plate. And as we do that, we unknowingly are speeding up this entire process in the depletion of these adrenal hormones. So this is where chronic fatigue really takes hold. If you try to even exercise, you're just going to wipe yourself out. You just can't do it. Absolutely, you do a little bit of exercise, and it takes you days to recover from that little bit of exercise. Brain fog is really taken hold, and you start to have those thoughts in your brain of, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to be a person with Alzheimer's, because you're forgetting people's names and just forgetting what you did when you walk into a room, and you're just sort of, things are so slowly shutting down there for you. Insomnia is going to be a big one. You might be able to, your head hits a pillow. We'll talk about this in a minute. Your head hits the pillow, and maybe you're one that's out like a light, but chances are you're only getting a couple hours sleep and you're back wide awake again. Again, anxiety and depression could be very common. A lack of sex drive, weight gain, and these are all very, very common. You sort of wonder where the heck the day is gone. You had, your to-do list is much longer than what you were able to get done, and you're just feeling like, man, I need more rest. I need more sleep. But even if you can get it, it's just not enough. So this typically, in my experience, is where folks are really reaching out. They've been frustrated. They haven't gotten the answers they needed. And so we are looking at doing the specialized testing to get them diagnosed, to find out where these hormone levels are for them. But the reality of it is some folks still keep going. They still keep pushing. And that's really, like I said, the raw nerve, the feeling frazzled, overwhelmed, feeling burned out. I can't take if one more thing goes wrong. All of those sort of things where there's a limit. You're reaching your limit. And so at this point, much of the body's, the stress hormones, the sex hormones, and even our neurotransmitters in our brain they're very low. And that they're really struggling, because, like I said, they're all interrelated there, and they're really, really struggling to be able to keep you involved in your life and in what you're trying to do. Now, adrenal failure, stage 4. This is not a very common stage, because usually through stage 3, the person is becoming so uncomfortable and so fatigued that they're really having a hard time functioning. But that's also the stage where they can be misdiagnosed frequently, and they can be sort of put in a category of, it must be a mood disorder, or it must be something like that, and they're not identifying as a hormonal issue, which it actually is. So stage 4, actually, progression of there becomes much more serious, much more dangerous. This can actually involve repeated trips to the ER. We're going to have much more breakthrough of physical symptoms. So as the picture shows, all of a sudden an intense lower back pain, where you can't really function. It just sort of hits you out of the blue and is incapacitating. That's a classic sign of adrenal failure. Become a higher risk of cardiovascular events, and you're just not eating right. You're not drinking water, so dehydration becomes an issue. There's digestive problems. Can be abdominal problems. So we want to look at this as it's a progression of seriousness, but it's also a progression of these hormones just becoming more and more depleted, trying to meet your body's needs. And so ultimately, if you've ever heard of folks being hospitalized for fatigue, this typically is what's going on. They've hit this stage 4, and they just they can't take care of themselves. They can't take care of anyone around them. They're just done. They're spent. They need to recuperate. So the solution, the adrenal solution, and we have plenty of ways to combat this hormonal imbalance and this hormone stress depletion. But we have to identify the symptoms because that is the key. That's the key to get it recognized as early as we possibly can, because you can see the consequences get more serious the longer it goes. So changing of the lifestyle is very important to be able to instill healthier choices, especially when there's some energy there to be able to follow through and make this happen, right? If we don't do it, then the energy is going to get worse and worse and less, and it makes it awfully hard for self-care, right? So, what we want to look at, making dietary changes, especially to remove any inflammatory foods. Again, it might be foods that you love, but they don't love you back. It might be foods that you think are the best for you and natural for you, but they don't agree with you. And so they're causing inflammation in your body, which falls into that chronic stress and the infection stage. Adequate hydration. We want to recognize stress, emotional and physical, right? We want to identify underlying infections. Is there anything there? Is there a Candida infection? Is there a parasitic infection? Is there something, an old viral infection that keeps sort of rearing its ugly head? We need to identify that and support or eliminate those types of things so we can really minimize the drain of your energy. We want to look at hormone supporting supplementation. I'm always a fan. Let's do it as natural as we can. We want to minimize, actually, guys, we want to minimize exercise when we notice fatigue. If you're starting to notice you're fatigued, we want there to be rest. If we get you through it quicker, then we can still go back to some type of exercise, something like a walking program. But please, if you're feeling fatigued and this is starting to happen day after day or week after week, please don't think that, oh, if I hit the gym, if I go exercise, I'm going to push myself through it. You're going to push yourself in the wrong direction. So please be careful. I want you to really consider regular sleep pattern. Try to get the devices turned off as much as possible. Make your bed just for sleeping and really get good quality sleep hygiene. Okay. Detoxification, clean up the diet, and then instill some type of relaxing meditation, delta waves at night when you're falling asleep. These are all wonderful ways, natural ways that don't have side effects to start rejuvenating and regenerating those hormones. So the adrenal supportive diet, we really want to look at, all the things that are coming into our diet, which again, I think this is classic for 2 weeks out. How many of you out there are, in the midst of baking for Christmas and cookies and things like that? This is all that processed food I'm talking about, right? So this is a big reason why I wanted to do this webinar now, to give you guys the information so you can get through the holidays and then you go, you know what? I'm going to have a plan for next year. I'm going to have a plan after the holidays to get myself healthy and feeling better, to get myself invigorated, energized, and losing this weight. So I don't expect, that you're going to hop on this in the next 2 weeks, but definitely it's a great time to get the labs done at the end of the year. If your insurance deductible has been met, if we need those types of labs, we can move forward and at least get the testing done so we get things rocking and rolling. But the diet, we really want to look at cleaning things up, getting in healthy fats, plenty of lean protein. A big thing, I want a lean protein as breakfast within a half an hour of you waking up. So I know you're stumbling to the coffee pot, right? And in goes the coffee. Within 30 minutes of the time you wake up, I want you eating a lean protein. It's very important to help stabilize the hormones and give them what it needs. So Water, get as much water in you as you can. Make sure you're getting in more chewy vegetables, a little bit of fruit, and we want to really stabilize blood sugar and overall health. And so the role of blood sugar absolutely is that the higher the blood sugar goes, tends to kick in another hormone known as insulin. And again, like I said, one hormone sooner or later is going to affect the other hormones. But the insulin and glucose or blood sugar, they need to work synergistically. We need to be able to get those to combine at healthy levels, and that's the only way we can get energy into the cell. So if you have a lot of glucose, you have a higher blood sugar level. If your blood sugar level's over 90, I'm starting to get pretty concerned about your blood sugar level, because it starts to jump up pretty quick. We want your insulin level to be a little bit lower. We want your glucose blood sugar level to be ideally mid to upper 80s. And then we have a nice healthy range to those two actually join together. And that's what takes glucose, the insulin carries it through the cell wall and gives the cells energy. But what tends to happen in this hormone fatigue is the blood sugar goes up and the insulin goes up. And so there's all this energy, because that's what blood sugar is. It's all this energy, but it's circulating. It's just in the blood circulating. And yet the person's feeling fatigued. That energy can't get into the cells where it can be utilized, where it's needed. Okay? And so this is one of those causative factors that we see long-term for the development of insulin resistance at pre-diabetes and actually into diabetes. So again, we're going to touch sleep hygiene. Really, I want you to be conscious of setting aside time for sleep. It's when we regenerate. It's when our brains get to be creative and heal and deal with things that we are trying to make sense of. So please make time for really restful, healthy sleep. Take a look at your environment. Make sure it's dark and it's quiet. And again, like I said, if you can limit screen time as much as possible. And so we want to make sure that we don't want you exhausted when you're going to sleep. We want you sort of like get into a routine if you go to sleep, and we want you to sleep through the night. So if you're hitting the pillow hard and you're asleep right away, but you're waking up in a couple of hours, that doesn't do us any good. And if you lay there tossing and turning because you can't fall asleep, and then you're dragging in the morning, that's not what we want either. And both of those are signs of a hormone imbalance. So it's a pleasure. I know we have some things going on here in the chat, so let me address those, but let me leave this up here for you. If you're interested in working with me, I am a big fan of making sure that folks understand my approach, that I have a very different approach to feeling and figuring out what's going on. And so I invite you to go to norwinwellness.com, complete my online health assessment there. It's going to take you a little bit of time. It's not a 3-question quiz. It's going to take you maybe 20, 30 minutes to get that thing completed. But I'm going to find out a lot about your whole body, all your hormones, what's going on, your digestion, and things like that. Then what I want to do is get on a call, have a consultation with you to figure out what's going on, what are your goals, what have you tried, let's talk about some symptoms, and what's your best next step forward from where we find you to where you need to go. And typically, like I said, that involves some type of testing. The hormone testing, I'm always a fan of this. We can do things in saliva because it's a more stable testing way to capture the DHEA, the cortisol of the adrenals, and then the progesterone, estradiol, and testosterone. It's a great way we start to see whether the sex dependent, where the person is for a male, for a woman, what age these hormones should be, what's optimal, what's ideal. So I always want to make sure we get the testing to fit your symptoms and what's going on. And then, of course, like I said, absolutely, I want you to relax, enjoy the holidays. No big changes are really going to happen in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year here, but I want you to actually be able to enjoy the holidays knowing that you have a plan to move forward, knowing that when January comes along, you know what your best next step is. You're ready to go, but let's get the holidays, let's really enjoy them, let's have some fun with friends and family, and let's get rocking and rolling to get into the new year and get healthy. So let's take a look here. Let's see what we got. Anything here? Oh, let me get up here. Okay. All right, so this information is so right on the money, and sometimes that I so focus on my holistic Western Eastern massage practice. I focus on the 4 main feel-good hormones relating to pain management, balance, stability, and bliss. Excellent, right on the track, right on. Here's one. I snapped at my boss the other day, which I never do. Sometimes bosses deserve it, I'll say that. Just hitting a breaking point. So far, I have everything you have mentioned. So if you find that to be true, you are already on the process, right? So that's what I'm saying, folks. I don't look at anything in the body like it's a switch, right? I don't look at anything in the body like it's a switch. It's a process. Everything is a process, and we have to look at the process and find out where the person is on the process. Considering the body scientifically researched second brain, the gut, and how it controls our bodily responses through what we put into our system, and the resultant immune system responses is something that many people are not aware of, and its overall impact on our health and body responds and feels even in latent phases, leading to part where we are what we eat. Absolutely, we are what we eat. We just don't we don't pay attention to that quite so much, but we absolutely are what we eat. This is just great. Thanks, guys, for putting information in there in the chat. Let's hop over here. Some questions. So my thyroid's been checked multiple times. Mom and sister, both hypothyroid, and I've requested a larger panel. I have asked the doctor so many times, why am I so tired? Check for diabetes. Lyme disease, that's a good one, guys. That's a good one. Lyme disease. Again, we're looking for conditions that sort of mimic each other, right? Because that can become a pigeonhole. And good point. I'm so glad you brought this up. Have never had hormones checked. Most folks have not. So I would really highly recommend getting hormones checked. Again, you can go to norwinwellness.com. You can see how to, how we can talk personally, but you can fill out that assessment. Let's start with some basics here and then move forward. Fatigue, can it be seasonal? It can, but that's really unusual. Some folks suffer from seasonal allergies that can sort of wipe them out. But we want to even look at why are they suffering from seasonal allergies. So again, we're looking at what is triggering the immune system, and what can trigger the immune system, again, stress and chronic infection. And then we're back to the hormones. So, I always am sort of looking, what's the step before? What's the step before? What's the step before? I always want to get what is the common denominator. I don't want to be looking at fatigue and cold hands and feet. Now, I don't want all these symptoms that are unconnected. I want to look at the person as a whole person, right? You're just not thin hair and brittle nails. I want to look at everything that's going on And just like someone brought up about the digestive system, if we have the digestive system not functioning properly, if it can't break down food, even if you're eating the best diet, but if it can't break it down and it can't absorb what you need, there's no way we're going to get to the point where your cells have the energy and the vitamins and minerals that you need if we have a problem with the digestive system. So we really need to incorporate and actually just embrace this whole body approach. But I want it to be personalized. I want it to be individualized. I want it to be what you need it to be, right? That fits your needs and your symptoms. It can't be cookie cutter. It can't be we're going to do the same thing. We have to look and see what's going on for you. Okay, monitor sleep apnea, always tired. Yep, still getting up in the morning. Yep, perfect. Yep, that's what you need to do. Please go fill out that form. norwinwellness.com. Work with Dr. Plank is what it says there, and definitely do the health assessment. It takes a little bit of your time, but honestly, it's 30 minutes that could change the course of your life. If you've been frustrated by these symptoms for years, what's 20, 30 minutes, right, guys? Just go get it done. So do the health assessment, right? I'll get back in touch with you then. We'll set up a time, what's convenient, and then let's get to nitty gritty, finding out what your goals are, what your symptoms have been, what you've tried, what do you think is going on? Usually you guys know what is going on, just nobody's been listening. Or you didn't get the labs, like hormones are never checked. I hear that all the time. So anything else? We have anything else going on there? Anything else I can answer for you guys? You guys have just been spectacular. Thank you so much for hanging in here with me. It's just great information. And like I said, my goal is I want you feeling joy. I want you loving your life. And I want you to be able to shed that weight easier than ever before. And all of those things start with balanced hormones. So guys, go have great holidays. Enjoy yourselves. Enjoy your loved ones, your family, your friends. Truly, truly, you can relax now. Because if you've been feeling badly, we can have a plan to get you feeling better as soon as the holidays are done and we start in January. I want you feeling better in the next 30 days. So please, norwinwellness.com. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate it. See ya.